Can you hear it?
I can hear you. Can you hear?
Yeah, I didn't know if you could hear your birthday song.
Oh, what are you playing? I can't hear it.
It's the Beatles. It's the birthday song by the Beatles.
Oh, very.
Happy
Oh,
birthday, Kerry.
I thought you were going to play when I'm 64.
Yeah, I couldn't find it. So, and I was busy, and honestly, I was busy watching the mountain lion video of the guy being chased by the mountain lion for like the last 10 minutes.
Oh,
So,
I've missed that.
yeah, it's a guy in Utah being chased by a mountain lion for 6 minutes.
Interesting.
Kind of scary.
And how did it end?
Well, for all parties.
Okay.
He lived to show the video, and the mountain lion went back to its cubs.
Excellent, excellent. Oh, so there were cubs involved or kittens involved, whatever they call them.
Yeah, I don't know what a baby mountain lion is called.
Dangerous.
Welcome to Chocolatier Chat, Kerry. It looks like all your friends are here. Like I'm looking at all these names that are
All my
popping
buddies.
by. That all your like. The most recent one looks like Ruth is here, but Ruth is always here.
Ruth has been looking forward to saying hi to me today, she says.
Got it. How's your birthday going?
Well, I went to work, as I always do. Usually I write exams on my birthday, I've noticed, but today it was just to work. Nobody at work knew it was my birthday, so no big deal was made of it. The morning started with my husband saying happy birthday, and but I've been getting all sorts of happy birthdays on Facebook, and of course Rodney writes me a long, elaborate, you're practically my mother, happy birthday. So yeah, and he's very good. Yeah,
got it. So
yeah.
You've seen these things, you know how they go. We're going to spend some time talking about chocolate, and
Yeah.
We talked yesterday. I want to know the story about how it all started in the Wayback Machine, and then also some folks wanted to know where the EZtemper came from, which is kind of now your claim to fame.
Apparently so. So it all started with Fine Cooking magazine. In the back of every Fine Cooking magazine, there was an ad for the Sensation chocolate tempering machine. And I, of course, got Fine Cooking because I was seriously into cooking. I went through different phases. And I said, one of these days I'm going to have one of those. And this was pre-internet, so I couldn't order it and have it delivered. So my husband and I were down in San Francisco and went into Sur La Table. There was one basement there. And he agreed that I could buy it, and I brought it home. It cost me about 650 Canadian bucks by the time I got that sucker home. It sounded like a hairdryer going off for hours on end. He's a little bit noise averse, so it was a problem for him. I probably maybe 2 years or so used that. Easter, Christmas, made things with it. And then I realized I needed to learn to temper quietly. So I went up to Ottawa, and it was my friend Beth Wilson up in Manitoulin who told me about the fellow she had learned from. And he set up a class with a bunch of people, and none of them showed up except me. And so we had great fun, Joe and I, actually. I taught him a few things. He taught me how to temper. Came home from that and realized you needed to see it to know how to temper. And that's when I made a series of educational DVDs on how to work with chocolate, and how to temper, and
Right.
how to fill molds and things like that. Yes, of which I probably have about 999 of the thousands still underneath the front foyer of my house.
We have like 5 of them here.
You can find, yeah, that's right. That's
We
right.
bought like 5 of them, so
Yeah.
they might still be here too.
Somebody buys one, and it's like, oh, how'd you find out about that?
It's somebody that doesn't know about YouTube.
I'll send them to people because they're asking very, very basic questions, and it's like, you know what, I'm going to send these along, and watch them, figure out what questions you've got, and send them back to me. Yeah.
And the rest is history, as they say.
Well, and then so I was getting rid of that little Sensation chocolate tempering machine. I went up to a friend she became a friend in Waterdown. She wanted somebody to teach her how to temper. She went to a bunch of the different chocolatiers in Burlington who basically told her to get stuffed. And so she's.
Hey, hold on. I'm going to interrupt because it looks like you just
Yeah.
sold another set of DVDs. Like this person wants to buy them. So, you know,
Okay.
call Tomric. If you're in the U.S., you can call Tomric. We'll
That's from
sell them
Tom.
to you. We'll ship them.
Send them down. Perfect.
And
Perfect.
we'll take another set on consignment.
There we go. Okay. So I was telling Mari, I was trying to sell Mari this little sensation tempering machine, and I told her how noisy it was and how little chocolate it tempered, and she said, "Well, you know, I'm not going to buy it from you, right? But you're going to have to teach me how to temper chocolate." So I taught her how to temper, and I realized I've always enjoyed teaching, so I then sort of jumped into teaching chocolate instead. Yeah. Every now and then I'll actually take on a medical student and teach them something, medicine-wise, but it's much more fun to teach chocolate. Yeah.
But you still do the doctor. I mean, you're still a doctor. I mean, we were joking about that yesterday, but you still, perform medicine every once in a while.
Sure, way too much. Yeah. I've cut back my emerge shifts because of COVID. I only work a 24-hour shift every 2 weeks now instead of every weekend. Then I go in daily to the clinic in Hamilton, and we deal with the COVID swabbing and everything for the homeless folk. Yeah.
Got it. So for those who don't know, Kerry and I are kind of neighbors.
Yeah.
Sort of. There's a border that's never going to open again between us.
And
but
that border between us, exactly. Yeah.
And we were talking the other day, trying to figure out somewhere in that whole journey of chocolate, you got to know Tomric.
Yeah.
Because we were close, and you come across the border and pick up what you needed, and somewhere in there we met too. So that's somewhere in the last 15 years. Some there.
For 2009. Because that's when we did the first of the eGullet workshops, and you were my first guest, if you will, in the workshops. But we'd known each other for at least a few years before then.
Right. So, which is nice segue, by the way, Kerry. That was like a clean jump for us to go into eGullet. So, you along the way, and I'd done some work with eGullet before we met, because we did some work when I used to work for Albert Ooster. We did some stuff with them as well. But did you create the chain? Was it you've been okay? I'm having problems with the language today. I don't know why, but like you were using eGullet as a tool. And for those that don't know, eGullet is I don't know how to even describe what eGullet is.
Foodie forum.
It's a forum.
It's a forum.
With lots of topics.
With lots of topics, all food related. I joined in 2005, and after a while they realized I knew something about chocolate and candy, and actually asked me to do the online confectionery course on eGullet. And that's kind of how people on eGullet discovered that I knew something. And then Darianne, who is a girl who lives up in near Peterborough, where Mikey lives. Where is that?
Buckhorn.
In Buckhorn, Ontario. Yep. Where cousins go to marry. I didn't say that. In Canada, yeah. Up near Peterborough. She said, you should run a course for eGullet people. So that's when it started. She has never made it to one of our workshops. We've been doing them yearly since 2009, and she has never made it to a workshop. But everybody else has, so yeah.
But anyway, so there's this forum,
yes,
right, and you participate, and you started an annual event.
Yes.
On the northern side of the border here, right?
Yes, Niagara on the Lake was our first one, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That gets people together that are from beginners through seasoned professionals to share information for 3 days.
Yep, teach each other what we know. Yep.
And in that time, they've been here in Niagara on the Lake, which is right across the river from Buffalo. They've been in Vegas, right?
Vegas, we've been in. We have been in St. Louis. We were in St. Louis a couple of years ago. That is the most expensive place to get to and the most difficult place to get to for a Canadian from the Toronto area, let me tell you. But that was good fun. That was one of the guys from eGullet who has a restaurant there. So we had the opportunity to check out his new restaurant. It's foraging. Foraging is his thing. So he brought to Vegas one year not an ox blood. It was a blood-based Ganache.
That doesn't sound delicious.
It actually was kind of interesting. My foie gras makes a nice caramel, I must confess.
It's all fat.
Well, it's all fat, exactly.
Yeah.
Up in the like the $50 worth of foie gras on the inside of the microwave when I was done. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
that's Canadian.
What is it about chocolate? Like what was, so you were doing gourmet cooking, like, but what you didn't change your career for?
Oh, I know. It's for some reason that has been one that has stuck with me, and I think it's because I've never stopped learning. Right? I've never sort of at all. There's always something new. Somebody's doing something different, and I have to figure out how to copy it. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like, we know I spend a lot of time online talking to people, not working anymore, right? I mean, and I find that when we start talking about chocolate, there is always that next new thing to learn about. Like in our lab recently, we've spent a lot of time on soft candies, right? So gummies, jellies,
Yes.
that in my world, okay, so there's pâte à fouille, which is relevant for me, and then there's everything else that I don't really care. Like, it's not important to me. And, it's our first soiree out of chocolate in a while, but
yes,
you're right. There's this, I learn about something, and then there's this whole more new topic.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And off you go down the rabbit hole, lost for weeks trying to figure out how to make that happen. I think pâte à fouille is probably the thing that brought me to eGullet in the first place. I was working on figuring out, I think, how to find apple pectin, and I found recipes and stuff and people who were talking about PDF on eGullet. And so I followed along on eGullet. I didn't actually post there until I'd been on there for about 2 years probably. And then somebody was talking about chocolate and I knew more than they did. So I finally started posting.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So what we've learned, the whole pectin thing, right? I mean, and Beth, my assistant's really spearheaded this whole thing recently about pectin, but like, there's no single answer to the pectin conversation, right? So we can talk about sugar content, we can talk about Brix, and we can talk about pH, and we can talk about that kind of stuff. But the reality of it is, the second we change our pectin, everything else changes.
Everything changes. I got some stuff that was called apple pectin. I mean, it is apple pectin, but it's apple pectin that was made for jam. It was not made for PDF, and it made jam. Yeah, beautiful.
Right.
Jam, but
right.
Really
but fundamentally, pectin, the source of pectin doesn't really matter, right? And that was something that, like, when I first got in the industry, the Frenchies, no disrespect if they're Frenchies on, all said, "Oh, you use apple pectin, right? Apple pectin, it is the thing you need to use to make the pâte à fouille," right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't tell you anything. It really doesn't.
No.
Because things change based on the calcium you're adding and how you're adding the acid and all that stuff, right?
Yeah. For sure.
So anyway, the Yeti Chocolates, who's clearly back from fighting fires, or she's back from fighting fires.
I think she's back from fighting fires.
Or she's taking a break today to watch you. Says it was an elk heart.
It was elk. I was thinking staghorn, but that's a stone you have in your kidney. So sorry, I went off on another.
What do you serve it with? Like a Jägermeister? Is it like Jägermeister ganache
You
and Elkhart ganache? Is it like
know,
layers?
perfect thing for it, for sure.
Cool. And
Yep.
then there's a question about silk, and we'll get to that in a second because so you're participating in e-gullet. You're kind of like learning, and you're not giving up, and you're in it. And you made DVDs, and you sold 3 of them. Though somebody else said they had 1 set, so you sold 6 of them.
I've sold a whole lot more than 3 of them, but in the last year, I've probably sold about 5 of them. So, but I mean, that was years ago, right?
Because there's the internet took over, Kerry. Like
exactly, and people say, "Can you put them online?" It's like, no, I can't figure out how to do that. I'm a Luddite. What can I say? And I don't want to put them online, right?
Right.
Because I was really, yeah, and I knew nothing back then. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you're doing some consulting, and you're working with the Gullet group, and you're learning more about chocolate, but somewhere along the way, EZtemper happened.
Well, so that's e-gullet related too, because basically I was invited by Melissa Hellman and her husband Casey. He's a prof in chemistry at SUNY in Oswego. And they invited me down to give a talk to the chemistry club students. So down I went to do the research to put together this talk. I needed some pictures of cocoa butter crystals. And so I found something online that was talking about electron microphotographs of cocoa butter crystals, and it turns out that it was a prof at the University of Guelph, Alejandro Marangoni, who was actually taking these photographs. And so I went tootling up to Guelph, and I met him, and oh my God, he's just an absolute delight, my favorite fat chemist in the world, skinny fat chemist. He started talking something along the line. What are you going on about? There you go.
Never mind. Just keep going.
They exist. Fat chemists exist. His specialty is cocoa butter, although he goes out from there. So he had these fabulous electron microphotographs that he gave me that I used in my talk. But I spent a lot of time going up and visiting him and teaching his students how to temper, because they didn't know how to temper, but they were working with chocolate in the lab, right? But somewhere along the line in that process, he said that in Europe, they were using cocoa butter crystals to seed in industry. So this idea was sort of in the back of my head. And I must have been putting together another talk or doing something, maybe for École Chocolat, because I'm the shelf life tutor for École Chocolat. So I'll go over the material every now and then, and we'll kind of update it and stuff. So I was reading Beckett, and Beckett has a chart in there that talks about melting point of cocoa butter, right? And I just happened to notice that form 4 melts out at about 33 degrees, and form 5 doesn't melt out until about 34 degrees. So I'm thinking, okay, well, somewhere between 33 and 34, I should have nothing but form 5 crystal in cocoa butter if I can get it to that temperature. So I made myself a little what's the word I'm looking for? A little mock-up.
Prototype.
A little prototype with things that I cobbled together from the kitchen, from the thrift stores, from my husband's electronics shop, and proved that, yes, indeed, somewhere in that point between 33 and 34, cocoa butter wasn't melted, but it wasn't firm anymore. It was this soft, silky consistency. And that was where the idea came from. It was kind of one of those eureka, and all the water left the bathtub, and there we go. Eureka.
You have the weirdest analogies, by the way, Kerry. Like, I just shaking my head today. So just don't pay any attention to the guy behind the mask.
Yeah.
But so the question was about that, and about, how do you produce that, and why can they make it in their sous vide, and why can they not make it other ways? I mean, because cocoa butter wants to follow rules.
Could make it in your sous vide,
right.
But then you're surrounded by water, and there are people out there saying make it in your sous vide and call it silk, and harden it up and grate it, and it's not the same as using it at that correct consistency, right? So basically you're having to take it out of the water, dry it off, take it out, put it back in the water. Yeah, I've sort of taken the water out of the whole process, which we all know isn't really good for your chocolate.
Right. You know, and I think what's interesting is the first time you talked about your machine, you said you want one, and I'm like, no.
No, I know. You were a hard sell, let me tell you.
Okay, look, I've got like 13 tempering machines in this place.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Chocolatier, there we go.
And I think, you know, for us, I didn't think I needed one. And then we started doing classes here, and suddenly it was like, well, why don't you have one of those? Why don't you have one? I'm like, because we don't have one. And we found that for other things like Ganache, colored cocoa butter, right? So we don't temper chocolate with it, right? We don't ever. I mean, we will every once in a while, but really for the most part, we don't.
If you 100 grams of white chocolate to drizzle on something, right? You're not going to pull out a machine to do that, right?
Right. I mean, so, but like if we're doing any of those other things, and for me, the real winner was Ganache, right? I mean, suddenly I had a way to get crystallization quickly and consistently in my emulsions.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which was something that I'd never thought about before, for whatever reason.
Really wonderful article on the benefits of tempering Ganache. It's actually from what's the magazine that you get after you've gone to the PMCA? MC, Manufacturing Confectioner. So there's an article in there from Grueling, and it was actually studies that they did which proved that tempered Ganache has a longer shelf life, and of course better texture and everything. So, but he does it the hard way.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, I don't tend to temper my ganaches going into a shell. I mean, I probably should, but I don't. I definitely temper everything that's going on my guitar now.
Yeah, I want them to firm up quickly so that I can back them off more quickly, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Kerry and I both also are on the education committee for the SCIA, and we both have demos coming up. By the way, don't forget, I was told that we're supposed to plug your demo because I don't even know what it is.
A demo? It's I don't, what did they call it? Something different than I would have. It's tempering troubleshooting, basically troubleshooting tempering.
And that's coming up, and all that information on the SCIA website. But
the 2nd, I think, next week sometime. I'll have to start preparing.
I should put it on my calendar.
I gotta get some chocolate out of temper. No, you're busy next week. You've got
we've got a class here.
What's his name coming? Yeah.
But yeah, so Nicolas Batamisi is coming and teaching with us for 3 days. Spot's still available as long as we're plugging stuff. But
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
that it's something. So I'm teaching a class on Ganache, and I had to actually write up a description finally because it's in like 2 weeks. I thought maybe I should think about it. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I want to do is that I want to talk about how we form Ganache, and then what's different, whether we use a different tool or we worry about tempering and that type of stuff. I mean, I think which hits
from Manufacturing Confectioner. I can send it to you.
Well, that's okay. You know what? Because there's a good chance that like somebody from look at that Ecole Chocolat like puts up when the FCI session is on the feed. It's good that we have good people around us, right?
It's very important.
It's called Overcoming Defect and Temper on October 22nd at 12 p.m. Eastern Time.
Yeah.
And if you remember the FCIA, it's free. And if you're not, I think it's $10.
$10 or something. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is like the cheapest consulting you've ever done.
There you go. There you go.
Since I think we coerced you into doing the demo for free. So thank you.
Yeah, I gotta make some badly tempered things for pictures to show. Yeah.
You should talk to me. I can give you badly tempered stuff. I'm good at that.
I'm sort of thinking, how can I temper Form 4? I think I'm experimenting with it. Yeah.
Okay? So chocolate comes later, but like, have you always been a foodie? I mean, like, have you been a foodie since you were knee high to a toadstool?
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. My granny used to come to visit, and we'd make pull toffee, and I actually got a hook in the house so that I could make pull toffee a few years back. That lasted.
Totally unrelated to that, but totally related to that.
Yeah.
So in the kitchen, we've become total junkies to the Hercules Candy YouTube page.
Okay. Is
So
it
just like go to YouTube and type in Hercules Candy, and it's a chocolate shop outside of Syracuse, I think.
okay?
And like they do these videos of like life in their chocolate shop, and
Oh
like
yeah,
they're great. I mean, they've got a certain level of kitsch value to them, but one of the things they do some
yep,
unbelievable sugar work. Like
yep.
that, like they were pulling ribbon candy the other day that like we watched for hours in here. And I
I,
invited them to be a guest on the show, and they turned me down until after Easter.
oh, until I went to Germany on my I was doing an école trip in Belgium, and I skipped over to Germany to visit a friend, and I went and stayed with Michael Wolf, who has Wolf chocolate machines,
Okay,
and
right.
he has a chocolate museum in his house. He's got molds you would not believe. There is a report about this in eGullet somewhere if you go looking for it.
Right.
And they took me to a little factory where they made ribbon candy and stuff. They let kids get in there and get their hands in it, and hot sugar and all the rest of this, like, so different. It would not happen in North America.
Yeah, I was going to say that would not be a North American thing. There'd be a class action lawyer standing outside getting names and numbers when you walked out the door.
Kids with their noses right down on the leather on the table, watching them do it, and then we'd put it through the little brass things that would shape it and everything.
These guys do it by hand.
Yep.
It's crazy. Like, I'm watching them. They make it like, I think what's cool about food, and like anybody that's a craftsman, like really, but like I'm always impressed by food when I know how hard something is, and they make it look ridiculously easy. And I think that's something we share. I mean, I think we're always looking at what people are doing and really trying to figure out like how they do that. Like that doesn't seem possible.
With the one with the nut paste in the middle and the sugar over top. That's oh my God, that's an exercise.
That's what we watched yesterday. Like,
yes,
I can't pull sugar. Like, you put a kilo of sugar on the counter, like I can't get a ribbon. You know, it's like I spent some time with Ewald Nodder, and like Ewald, in his sleep, and like I like nothing is the same width throughout. And I watch these guys pull this 15 kilo slab of sugar with nut paste and ganache in the middle of it, right?
Right. Yep. Yeah, no problem at all. And then cut it with scissors, right? Yep.
Yep. And then they like no ruler on the table either, and every piece is exactly the same length. Yep. It was crazy. But anyway.
Yep.
So since grandma, so you and I cut you off. So you used a Canadian term for your grandmother.
Granny?
There you go.
Yeah, my granny was a Brit. Well, actually, a Scot. Stuart. Name was Stuart. She grew up in Ceylon. Her father owned a tea plantation in Ceylon. My great grandfather was a physician. So Granny would come and stay with us. She lived out in Vancouver Island, and Granny would come and stay with us until my mother got tired of her and sent her back every time. They didn't get along well. But mom was a fabulous cook as well. And, I still have the piles of things that she'd cut out of magazines that, we all have that pile of recipes that we're never going to make it to before we die. I've got my mother's as well as mine. Yeah. And it's interesting how our foodie interests are fairly similar.
What's an early chocolate or confection remembrance then? What's the earliest one?
Probably candy with fudge. No, my mom taught me how to make fudge, and that was probably on almost every Friday night. I would make fudge, and my brother would insult it, and he'd eat all of it. Yeah. But the one thing that it took me the longest time to learn was that you needed to let it cool down long enough before you started beating it. And I have the patience of a gnat, everyone will tell you. And yes, I still have trouble doing that. But now what I do is I seed it with fondant, and then it works perfectly.
Yeah, truth be told, so obviously we're in the era of COVID, so we didn't go anywhere, and so one of our big outings in the summer is we go to the county fair.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And somewhere in there's a funnel cake. There's like a caricature of my daughter, and there's half a pound of fudge. And so and I don't really, I don't love fudge. I'll eat it because I'll eat anything that's sweet.
Well,
But
yeah, it's impressive. Yeah.
I can't help myself. Anyway, so we didn't get the fudge for Christina and Olive, and so Chris is like, "You need to make it," and I'm like, "Okay, I can do this."
Right.
It says Chocolatier right here on my coat. I can do whatever I want. And so the first day I pooched this batch of fudge and I had this like liquid goo, right? And then I'm like, okay, I can't really do it the way I want to do it. I've got to kind of think about this, right? And consulted Grueling, because who else would you consult?
You could have gone on to the Gullet confectionery course and I would have showed you how to make fudge and told you to let it cool down long enough before.
Yeah. So the next day it worked out much better. Like we got the second day, the first day we had, I don't know what we had. Something for the trash, but
But it got eaten anyway, didn't it?
No, it didn't. It really didn't.
That bad.
No, it didn't have any body.
Put it over ice cream.
Could have.
Yeah. All the same ingredients, right?
Right. And you know what? That's a cool thing about confection in general, right? Like I went and saw the Alton Brown Roadshow, right, where he made sorbet with a canister of liquid nitrogen and a can of Red Bull, right, with sugar and all that stuff. And I'm like, wow, those are the same ingredients that go in caramel.
Yeah.
I could make Red Bull caramel.
I should
do that.
The next thing you did was Red Bull caramel. Yeah, exactly.
And everybody in the office like walked around like this for 2 days because they were all eating Red Bull caramel, because there's nothing like reduced Red Bull to really give you wings, I guess.
I made a black garlic caramel one year and it was amazingly good, because black garlic is nothing like garlic, right? It's crazy. So
we have a customer who was a black garlic farmer who figured out a process for basically he'd cook it under pressure for like 3 days.
Yeah, I did. That's how I make my black garlic, is actually sous vide and dehydrator.
Right, and then he panned it.
Perfect.
But that was like one of mine. Like he's like, I want to coat this up in chocolate. How would you do that? And I'm like, well, I wouldn't.
That sounds.
Be told that does not seem like a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can either enrobe it or you can pan it.
Yep.
And he's like, which would be faster? I'm like, enrobing? Panning? And he's like, will you teach me how to do that? I'm like, sure. And then like he goes to like garlic festivals and he can't keep it in stock.
He can't keep it. No.
Because the garlic people love their black garlic.
Oh yeah.
I think it's okay. I wouldn't eat a lot of it, but
It definitely has its place. Definitely, it's not the same place for regular garlic, but it's yeah.
Well, and then he coats it in like blueberry powder.
Interesting. Some of the same compounds, so it actually would probably
lots of antioxidants.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of antioxidants. Yep. So, what's next then? So, like the DVDs were okay.
Yeah.
Consulting's still around, right? You're doing EZtemper stuff. Where last time Kerry and I saw each other, we were both in Italy. We were both in Rimini at a trade show.
Yes.
You were representing EZtemper. And I was at the Sell Me booth, and we were right around the corner from each other. So that's the last time we've seen each other. Usually we see each other a lot more often than that.
A lot more often. Yeah, and we've talked a lot because we were going to be doing the workshop down there until COVID came along. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I got a call from the girl from the hotel who had booked our rooms for us. She was very disappointed that we didn't make it down. She was looking forward to the chocolate, I think. Yeah. She's lovely. She's really lovely. Next year. Well, if the borders open, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see it. Well, I read today that it is not opening
anytime. Not opening.
Your premiere, is that what's I don't even know what's his title.
Are we talking the Prime Minister or the Premier?
I don't know. Who's Trudeau?
Trudeau? Okay, he's the prime minister. Yeah.
Prime Minister, sorry, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
said that until we get our S together in the United States, he is not opening that border. I don't know that he used the S word, but he definitely, that was the implication, was that until you guys get your stuff together, we're not open. You can't come here.
Yeah. Yeah. And people are still flying in and out of the United States, aren't they?
Yeah, I guess it depends where you want to go. I don't know. I haven't, it's weird because I, like, you know me, I get on a plane like every 2 days. I haven't been on a plane since
No.
March.
No, nor have I. No, I think the last time I was going to fly down to Michigan, but I decided to drive because COVID was just sort of starting, and I'm thinking I don't want to be in an airport with this COVID stuff out here. So I drove down to Michigan, and fortunately the weather was beautiful. And yeah, haven't been on a plane since I came back from Amsterdam in February. Yeah.
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 We asked for permission for me. We asked Ottawa for permission for me to come to Canada, and they said no.
And they said no because you're only a trainer. Only a
Yes,
trainer.
they will let our technicians have been given permission to come to Canada, so they can cross the border for repairs.
And they have to isolate at all. Do they have to isolate when they come back home?
No, because it's not on the list of places we have to isolate coming back from when you come into New York.
Okay.
If we go to Ohio, we have to isolate.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Our numbers are starting to pick up, so you may make it back we may make it back onto your list if we're not careful.
I don't know, but anyway, so I'm not allowed in Canada, and I was, so we have a couple customers that are waiting for me, and now we had to tell them, sorry, you're gonna have to keep waiting.
Can you do it remotely?
Yeah, we've done all the remote that we can, but they want us there, and I can come if I'm willing to quarantine for 14 days.
You could send Rodney up there. He could probably do it for you. Where is it?
Out west, and it's a one shot, and it's a bunch of stuff.
Yeah,
so
that's.
But anyway, someday COVID will be over.
I do hope so. I do hope so.
That's not really inspiring coming from the medical doctor. I hope so, as opposed to, yes, I have confidence in modern medicine to solve this problem.
Yeah, I'm not. How have we done with pandemics in the past?
It's my first.
Yeah. Well, SARS. You around for SARS?
Ironically, the winter of SARS, I was in both Thailand and Toronto, and got sick. And I called my HMO, and I'm like, hey, I'm not feeling well. And they're like, we have some questions to ask for you. And one of them was, have you been to Southeast Asia? And it's like, yes.
Yes.
Have you been to Canada? Yes. Please hold. Right. And I got a doctor, and I actually got tested for SARS. So,
Yeah.
But on this pandemic, I was in northern Italy, New York City, and San Francisco, all between February 1st and March 1st. So,
Michigan. I swear I'm probably the vector.
Yeah, that's what we joke. There's no joking about COVID anymore. But yeah, that was the joke early. It was like, if anybody had it in Buffalo, I started the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there were only 150,000 people at CJIP,
and they were
from all over the world.
This close to your face anytime you tried to go anywhere in there. I was thinking about that yesterday. I'm thinking how crowded we were in there if you tried to walk from one place to the other. So
Eric Case is now asking, is your blood type O? And honestly, my wife asked me this question the other day, and I don't remember what my blood type is. I don't actually know. I should.
A negative, so I'm screwed if I get COVID. I think I probably already had it when I was in northern Italy.
We probably had it together.
Probably.
So I was asking what's next for you. So you've created this tool that you sell all over the world, and you get to jet around the world with, and you get to talk to chocolatiers. You know more people than I do, and I know a lot of people.
I am just so amazed at the number of people I have gotten to know over time. It's just it boggles my mind, to tell you the truth, how many people I know in chocolate these days. And they are generally a really, really nice bunch of people, many of whom are willing to help each other out and teach what they know. So Ramon Murado, right? He runs Cocoberry. So he came,
Right.
it's another connection, right? He was in Toronto doing something, and we were doing our workshop in Toronto that year. And so the night before the workshop started, we went to see his presentation at George Brown. Um, he went home with an EZtemper, and shortly thereafter, he invited me to be a sponsor for the World Chocolate Masters in 2018. It's like, yeah, okay, I met some really, really neat people over time. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Like, I don't know who I know anymore, right? And like people are
Yeah.
surprised when I don't know somebody, and it's like it's hard because I mean, our industry's grown so much in the last 10 years, right? And
Yeah.
at the same time, nobody's really left.
Yes. Well, I remember getting something from Chris Harvey that I didn't know from Adam, saying, you know, he had this many Instagram followers and this many Facebook followers and all the rest of that thing. Instagram? Facebook? What's that?
Right.
I knew then what I know now. I probably would have jumped on him. Yeah, there's just, there are always new people getting in there. It's interesting to see how some people who've been in the business for a long time have sort of stayed the same, and others have grown. I'm thinking particularly of Ruth. When I go back to Ruth's book, which was one of the first chocolate books I had, candy making, Ruth Kendrick, right?
Right.
Chocolate. And the chocolates that they were making back then, hand dipped and all the rest of this stuff. And when you see her work now, techniques and things like that, and then you see others who are still, it's sort of the mom and pop American candy shop that I go into, and all the stuff looks the same as it ever did, right? It's quite
Right.
fun. I do some consulting for one company in the States, and they are trying very hard to introduce color into their, but their customers don't want things to change, right?
Right.
And they're
And
stuck.
I think there's a home for all those things too. I mean, I think that
Of course there is.
I mean, I think our global pandemic has really, forced people to look at their businesses. I was on an RCI call the other day, and there were some people there that were having some real challenges about the methodology and how they sell.
Yep.
Right. And what that's done is it means that I'm looking for chocolate and I don't necessarily get it from my local chocolatier. And that's the hard part for the local chocolatier to a certain extent. The same way that when you're looking for information now, right?
Yep. You don't go.
I can get information anywhere in the world today. I can find something online right now.
Yep. Yep.
And I think I think it's a reminder that you kind of got to be a little nimble, and you got to be willing to at least look at new things,
Yep.
Or at least do them as well as you possibly can, because somebody's going to go somewhere else.
New ways to sell, right? How do you, like if you've never been on the internet and you don't have a way to ship, and I'm seeing a lot of things, people asking about how to ship and things like that, right?
I had a call about that today. Like, hey, this is our bunny. We're going to ship it for Easter. How can we do it better? And the answer is pick a different bunny.
Yeah, because this one's ears will fall off, right? Yeah.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
And you know what bunny I'm talking about. I mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
Unless you do superhero packaging, right, with 2 pieces of plastic,
Shells.
you're gonna have you're gonna have challenges getting that to somebody. But if you're looking for a hip bunny, here's this bunny, and that would be my recommendation. Like, try that. Try them both. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? But like, there's a great story that Tom Shashaw's here a lot, and Tom, small business guy, Philadelphia. Him, his wife, and like one other person, they have a retail place, but they really do a lot of like farmers markets, right?
Right.
And Tom had that oh crap moment. We need a website that can sell chocolate.
Yes.
And he spent 72 hours, learned how to code, and then created a website in like 4 days. And which is 96 hours, not 72. But, like, because he had to, like, he
Yep.
didn't have a choice,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's where our industry is at. Like, and I don't think it's just our industry. I think lots of industries are going through that. But, like,
Yeah.
if you don't figure it out right now,
Yeah.
there could be trubs on the flip side, right?
Well, because chocolate is selling really, really well in spite of COVID, right?
Right.
But you got to find a way to get it to people. Yeah.
Hey, we just got to thank you for connecting the chocolate community.
Yeah.
So there were inspirations.
So speaking of websites, my website is in serious need of renovation, and I keep hearing this from many, many, many different people.
Which one?
The EZtemper one. The Chocolate Doctor one, I pay absolutely no attention to that one at all, right? Absolutely no attention. It just sort of sits there and does its thing, and every now and then sells a set of videos, and I think, oh, how did they find me? But it really needs, it needs serious cleaning up. Yeah. And everybody
I love it.
Yep.
There it is.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, we're in the middle of a website refresh too, and it's a ton of work. I mean, it really is.
Well,
right?
Yeah, I'm gonna end up doing it myself, and I'm not good at it, and that's where I need to simplify it. I mean, I need to cut out a lot of the crap and make it a punchy first page, right? If you're going to refer people to the website, you got to have a punchy first page.
All right, so there's a great question. Where do you think chocolate's going? What's the new frontier for chocolate? Since you didn't really answer what's the new frontier for Kerry, what's the new frontier for chocolate?
That's an extremely good question. I mean, right now it seems to be putting cannabis in everything. Absolutely everything. You know I'm a published author, do you? I am not.
I think I did know that.
I have published. I am not going to perish, and it's all related to cannabis in considerations in the use of cannabis in chocolate, I believe, is what the title of it is. It's in a food review journal, and that was Alejandro Marangoni that talked me into doing that, and now he wants me to do other articles. But you know what? Hell's going to freeze over before I ever do that again. It was a lot of work, but I learned a lot, so that was too. But yeah,
I'm with you too. Like MC every year, like MC will send me an email like, "Hey, can you write an article about this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, no." The first couple times I said yes, and I didn't do it, and then I get an email like a month later, like, "Where's your article?" And then
now you know to say no right off the bat. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So Eric is like recommending like coming up with like specific terpenes to go with specific origins.
Yes. And what terpene? Very good question. You'd have to do some tastings, I think, and figure out what you taste in there and decide.
What version of pine needles go with what version of cacao?
So mango and pineapple, right? And pine needle, right? I can taste pine needle in mango, so it's obviously got some of the same compounds.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So it's the question. So I'm with you. I think cannabis is obviously going to be. We're going to continue to drive towards cannabis. I mean, health and wellness and confection is all the rage. Whether that's reduced sugar or whatever, right?
Of nutraceutical labels on chocolate. I have always been, let's call it a luxury, let's call it a treat, let's call it candy. Let's not go down the nutraceutical line, because science will change over time and they'll discover that something that was good for you last week is bad for you this week. So it's better that it's, a luxury is still a luxury. Good for you, bad for you, doesn't. If it happens to be good for you, bonus, right? But do you have nuts? No, I don't. When I used to live in Queen Charlotte's, they said there was no women in the Queen Charlotte's, just men with no balls. There you go. Totally off on another planet.
And all right,
where the Queen Charlotte Islands are?
No. It's Canada. Yep. Like, I know where Toronto is. I know where Vancouver is.
Okay, so it's off the coast. It's above Vancouver Island. It's off the coast of Prince Rupert and about 60 miles under the Alaska Panhandle. in the Japanese current. It's semi-tropical rainforest, and I was in the military, and I was stationed there.
Got it.
I lived there for a couple of years. Lovely, lovely, lovely spot. Yeah, full of lumberjacks and men with no. Yeah, yeah. Sorry.
Hey, and Will is talking about that she's doing a project right now where she's using coffee and using it like chocolate, and I think or using like cacao. And yeah, I mean, there's
Yes.
a couple of people that are doing that. I think it's really interesting.
Too.
The real trick that
The shells on their cacao when they grind.
Yeah, the real trick on it is getting that eutectic property of the fats and the oils to work, so you get decent temper, right? I mean, that's really the rub.
Yeah.
Because the oils do not like each other very much.
Metals and shit that might be in your shells and aflatoxins. Yeah.
All right, so you will have a different perspective on this question because you are Canadian.
Okay.
And you know the question, because everybody knows the question now, because it's not like original anymore, because I ask it to everybody. But mass market candy bar. And a story before you tell it, I'll give you a second to think about it. So Eric Case, who you know and I know, and who's the one that asked if you have nuts, which I don't know what he meant. But anyway, Eric, who is like the ultimate chocolate snob in a good way, said that like I inspired him to go out and get some mass market candy bars. And he sent me pictures of them. And he said everything he tasted was awful. And I'm like, I guess, you know, where I, on the other hand, I'm like, cool, I'll eat that. I've been eating the Snickers bars out of the Halloween bowl in the other room today. But
every time I eat them, I think they're disgusting, but I still will occasionally pick one up. So I found myself hard pressed to decide. At this age, I would go for a Twix bar, but as a child growing up, it had to be a Big Turk or a coconut bar, which is very similar to what you guys call mounds. Yeah.
Yeah, I prefer the Almond Joy if we're in that category, but
Right.
but the mounds are in dark chocolate and the Almond Joys are in milk. And really they should make the Almond Joy with dark chocolate, and then it would be great.
Then it would be absolutely perfect. Well, make your own. I've got a really great.
Okay, so here's the picture that Eric sent me with the Twix bar and the Kit Kat bar, and he said, where is it? These are what I used to eat as a kid, although it wasn't a big Kit Kat. With regular, however, I just wanted you to know that either were absolutely vile. The chocolate is, I don't even have a response.
There you go. Yeah, it's not chocolate.
He said, well, those actually are. Those are both real chocolate. Those are fully cocoa buttered.
Okay.
So Eric made Chocolatier chat again, sort of by proxy. So thanks for.
So Coffee Crisp is a great little bar for sure. And you know, growing up, of course, it would have been a Dairy Milk or one with nuts in it. There's an absolutely lovely, lovely story by Stuart McLean. What was the name of the Vinyl Cafe on CBC Radio? And the Dave and Morley stories, and they're absolutely hilarious. But the one about the Dairy Milk bar was absolutely, I mean, it had you first of all in stitches, and then in tears, and then in stitches again at the end. It was just a great little story. Yeah, all about a Dairy Milk bar. Yeah.
There you go. So hey, we're running out of time.
Okay.
Like we're wont to do, because I don't know where the last hour we just went.
Yes.
But anyway, EZtemper has its own website, EZtemper.com.
.com. Yep. Dead.
And then EZtemper has an Instagram page where there's a really bad picture of me. By the way, one of the worst pictures of me on the internet. And because I didn't give you a good picture, because I didn't know you were going to like put me on your page. Those are all available. Like EZtempers are available to order through online, right?
Just online. I ship them all out of my house. I have a storage locker, and then they make it into the basement, and then they get up into the spare bedroom where they get calibrated, and then they get sent out the front door. Mm-hmm.
But if you want a DVD, you can order that from Tomric.
Yes, please. Clear out.
To be honest with you, I don't know if they're still there. They probably are. We don't throw anything out of Tomric, so I'm sure they're still in the stock room.
You sell it to me years and years and years later when you have one of your garage sales. I've gotten the best stuff at your garage sales.
And then it's piled up because nobody's been here in like in 40 weeks.
Cocoa pod molds. I want the cocoa pod molds.
We'll talk about that offline.
Okay.
Figure it out. But anyway, so Kerry, thanks a bunch. Thanks for joining us. And thanks for bailing me out a couple weeks ago when we had internet problems.
Oh, anytime. Anytime.
And we'll see each other someday.
Convince some people to come over to eGullet and join our Chocolatier community on there, because it's one of the more active parts of eGullet these days. And then there's lots of other foodie stuff to talk about as well.
Right, and like, what else? And people should watch your tempering thing at FCIA.
Yes, the FCIA thing on October the 22nd at noon.
And my marketing department is reminding me to plug the fact that we still have spots in our Nicholas Bottomisi class next week.
Yes, I wish.
Day 3 is panning. We're going to pan on day 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can sign up for each day individually. All right. That's it for me. So thanks, Kerry.
Good to talk to you, Brian.
Stay safe. We'll talk soon.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, bye.